Everyone knows someone who has myopia. Currently, about half the US population has it, and if you think that the number of people walking around wearing glasses is increasing, you're right. In the United States alone, there was a 66% increase since the 1970s, and it doesn't appear that myopia is slowing down. In other parts of the world, myopia is epidemic. Take Singapore, for instance. 75% of the population has myopia, 80% in Hong Kong, and in South Korea, a staggering 97% of the population has myopia. If you live in the United States, it's either you or the person next to you. As this graph shows, over the next 30 years, more and more people will be getting myopia. By 2050, half the world's population, or about 5 billion people, will be myopic. What's even more scary is that about 1 billion will have a high prescription, which puts them at a very high risk of vision problems. Traditionally, we've thought of myopia as being an inconvenience, a problem where someone just can't see well unless they have their glasses or contact lenses on. But we're now realizing that it's a much bigger problem. The following was taken from a paper by Flitcroft, and it shows that patients who have high myopia are at a very high risk of developing things like retinal detachments, maculopathies, and other vision issues. And this means that there's an increasing rate of vision impairment and blindness due to myopia. In fact, there was a paper that's done by Brian Holden that states that by 2050, the number of people with vision loss resulting from high myopia will increase 7 times from where it was in 2000. And that'll make myopia the leading cause of permanent blindness worldwide. High myopia is a major health issue, but what is hopefully equally alarming for us is that with low amounts of myopia, patients also have high risks. As you can see, patients with even 1 diopter of myopia have a 2 times risk of glaucoma and maculopathy, and a 3 times risk of retinal detachment. Historically, we thought that 1 diopter of myopia was a small amount and that it was insignificant, maybe even beneficial for some people who had presbyopia. But if given the choice, I wouldn't want a 2 or 3 times greater risk of visual impairment or blindness, especially if there was something that could be done about it. And that's the great thing. There is something that can be done. Like most things, if we can detect it early and treat it early, we can make a huge impact. But first, we need to understand some things about the development and progression. If one parent has myopia, a child is 3 times more likely to get it. And if both parents have it, then the risk of development increases to 6 times. The younger a child is when they initially get myopia means that the rate of progression will be faster and the amounts of myopia will be higher. Although we can work to help patients at any age, we know that the fastest progression of myopia happens in childhood, and as a result, that's where we place the majority of focus in our clinic. In our clinic, we see that anyone who has myopia before the age of 6 has a very high risk factor for developing high myopia, which, as we stated earlier, indicates a high likelihood of visual impairment or blindness later in life. And any child who has any amounts of myopia before the age of 12 gets treated, and then we monitor them closely for any progression. There are essentially 4 pillars that we stand on to help manage our myopic patients, and these are the management of accommodation and binocularity, orthokeratology, specialized multifocal soft contact lenses, and eye drops. Our decision to go with one treatment over another or to go with a combination of treatments really depends upon the patient and the situation. For our purposes, I'd like to focus on what I consider to be the gold standard of myopia management, and that's orthokeratology. Orthokeratology, or Ortho-K, has been used for decades to manage patients with myopia. I recall hearing about clinicians back in the 70s who managed patients. And in the 90s, Ortho-K got a new life and it showed improvement in its ability to manage myopia because of some improvements in the lens design. It's become a trusted method of managing myopia worldwide. In fact, it accounts for 2% of all the contact lens fits in the world. In some countries, it's far more prevalent. Take France, for instance. 13% of all the contact lens fits are in Ortho-K. Hungary, it accounts for 25%. And in China, where myopia is very prevalent, it accounts for a staggering 61% of all the contact lenses that are fit. Practitioners around the world have been treating myopia with Ortho-K for years because it has a tremendous effect on slowing the progression of the disease. Most of the studies show that it slows things down by 50%, and in many of the studies, it shows it even more than 50%. If you're not familiar with Ortho-K, it's a contact lens-like device that's worn at night while sleeping. And during wear, it gently and painlessly reshapes the surface of the eye. The change to the eye is microscopic, and when it's done correctly, it works to slow down the progression of myopia. But an added benefit of Ortho-K is that it corrects much of or all of the prescription that a patient has so that they can see pretty good without glasses the next morning. Now, the change to the prescription is not permanent like surgery would be, and the lenses do need to be worn again each night in order to maintain the vision. But the slowing or halting of the myopic progression seems to be permanent well after the patient stops wearing their lenses. A common question that I get asked is it safe, both by the parents and the children? And in short, yes, it is. Like any contact lens device, there's always a risk of an eye infection, especially if the lenses aren't cleaned or stored correctly. And although the risks for eye infections are small, I always tell my patients that if they ever have redness or discomfort, that they should come in immediately for a quick check, just to make sure that things are okay. So why is the global Ortho-K usage only 2% of the total contact lens fits? And quite frankly, I have no idea. I think that it's because eye care providers around the world think that fitting Ortho-K lenses is difficult. And although providers do need to learn something new and have a change in their mindset, getting started in Ortho-K is really very easy. There's tons of Ortho-K companies that make lenses that work great, and I've used several of them successfully. In the SMART study, they used the Euclid Emerald lenses, and they looked at how challenging it was to fit patients with orthokeratology. The study was a 3-year study looking at 172 Ortho-K patients and 110 patients that were wearing soft lenses. There were 10 investigators looking at these patients. After 3 years, there was no significant adverse events, and there was no significant difference in the number of dropouts between the two groups. But there was a significant difference in the progression of myopia. The group wearing soft contact lenses had a 1 diopter progression in their myopia, while the group wearing Ortho-K lenses had about an 1/8 of a diopter of progression. A couple other things stick out to me with this study, and that's how many patients were successfully fit with Ortho-K lenses. 80% of the subjects that were fit with Ortho-K had a successful initial fit. An additional 15% had success with their second lens fitting. In another study by Chen, they reported lens fitting success of 73% and the second lens success of 90%. I think whether it's 90% or 95% success, that's phenomenal when you compare it to the other types of contact lens fittings that are done. The success of fitting in the SMART study didn't seem to have any correlation to how many lenses the practitioners had fit. In fact, of the 10 investigators, 8 of them had never fit the Emerald lens before this particular study. And this particular lens fitting process with the Euclid Emerald design is pretty streamlined. All the laboratory needs is the prescription for the patient, the Ks or keratometry values, and the HVID for the patient. We have the treatments today to reduce myopia globally by more than 50%. And if we followed the protocol of the SMART study and it only took 2 visits to be 95% successful, imagine the global implication 30 years from now. We'd radically alter the number of high myopes, and we would dramatically affect the risks of life-altering vision loss. If you're not seeing myopia as a disease, it's time to look at the statistics. And if you're not working to slow down the disease, it's time to become part of the global solution.